Hi, it's Cheryl from Caribou Country Lifestyle. I just was talking the other day about repotting or uppotting my geraniums. So I figured, well, I would just show you how I do that. So I already have my little 6-cell, and then I have a 4-cell as well. Because I have 9 geranium seedlings here, I don't need 2 6-cells. So I've got a little bit of dirt in the bottom of these 6-cells, and I'm just going to loosen up. I have just a little tongue depressor stick, and I'm just going to loosen up the dirt so that I can get all of the root with the geranium together. I'm just going to put it in the 1 cell, and then I will do the same with the next one. I will just put all the dirt, and I won't disrupt the roots on the geranium. In this one I have 5 seedling geraniums, and I'm just going to move that in there. And I have number 4, and I'm trying to get as much even of the dirt with the root as I can, and then I can just add more dirt around the plant. And I'm just going to poke that one in a little bit more, and then I'll get this last one in here and put it right in there. Okay, so now I'll get these ones in this tray. I had these cells filled right up with dirt, and then I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I need room to put the geraniums in and then be able to sink them down. So that wasn't going to work. So then I got a spoon and I dug out some of the dirt. So then it wasn't such a big deal. So another thing I was also wanting to talk about was zone 3 planting. I live in a zone 3 area. I live in the Caribou, and that is the interior of BC. So I looked up zone 3 vegetables and what types of zone 3 vegetables that we can plant that are going to make it in our short season of, really, we have about just over 3 months to our season. So some of the different vegetables that we can grow in our season is your leafy greens, your lettuce. When I plant my lettuce, I actually like to plant, I have 3 or 4 different kinds of lettuce. I will do a loose leaf lettuce, a head, like a summertime head lettuce. I will do a romaine lettuce as well. And I find that the romaine and the loose leaf lettuce, I can just snap off leaves as I need them. But with the head lettuce, that takes a little bit longer for it to develop. Spinach, Swiss chard. You can also do collards and kale as well. Last year I did, it was the Toscano kale, the dinosaur kale, and then I also did a curly leaf kale. And both of them actually did pretty good. And then for the Swiss chard, I did a rainbow Swiss chard, and I really like that. I like it, but I also like the looks of it too. I liked all the different colors of it. So I'm just topping up these with some of my soil. And I just want to kind of pat it down around the plants just to firm it down around my seedlings. So, okay, that worked out pretty good. Also, you can do bok choy or like a su choy. Last year I did a Chinese toy choy, and I actually ended up getting 3 crops of the Chinese toy choy. So that worked out really well. Parsley, basil, cilantro, those are all herbs that I have grown. Thyme. I bought a sage plant last year and put it in my garden. I'll see if it comes back. But I'm replanting, like basil will not come back every year here, neither will parsley. So I have to plant that and every year. And also radishes are really good. You can reseed your radishes, like sow a new row of radishes every 15 days. I did celery last year. My celery actually did quite well. So that's another vegetable that is good in this area. Cucumbers and zucchini are good. You just want to make sure with the cucumbers that they have something to vine up. Last year I had them on some, they're called cattle panels, and I cut them in half because they're 16 feet long. So I cut them to be 8 feet long, and they are 4 feet high. And I had my cucumbers trellising up those cattle panel supports. I also had peas going up another set of supports, and I like to grow the snow peas. I know lots of people like to grow the regular shell peas, but I prefer the snow peas. I do not overly care for shelling peas. That just seems like a lot of work. So I prefer to grow the snow peas, but I know lots of people that prefer to shell the peas. They enjoy doing that. I do not. And also plant garlic. With garlic, you would plant that in the fall, usually in October before the snow comes. That's when I planted my garlic last year. And then what happens in the spring is I'll pull away the mulch, because I used a straw mulch around my garlic, and I'll pull away that straw mulch, and that way then my garlic will start to green up and it'll start growing. And then come closer to the fall again, I can dig up that garlic in the late summer. I can dig up that garlic, and what you can do is you can save some of your bigger cloves of garlic when you dig them up. Save some of the bigger ones, and you can plant those in the October again for the following season. A good rule of thumb also to have a good growing season is to make sure that your beds are weeded and mulched during the summertime too. It doesn't take long I go out there every day and I will weed as I'm watering, and then I'll pay attention to if I need to add some mulch. When my plants start getting bigger, I'll add mulch around them, and that will also help keep the weeds down, but it will also help hold the moisture in, so you're not finding that you're having to water them as much. You can plant potatoes. Potatoes do really good in our season. If you plant them, that's another crop that you can plant before your last frost. Rhubarb and asparagus are also reliable crops in Zone 3. I actually planted my new asparagus crowns last spring, and this year I will be able to only pick a few here and there of my asparagus, when I planted it last year, I actually planted the bush beans around them. And that was something that I just decided I would plant around my asparagus because I knew I wasn't going to get any asparagus. And I knew that I wouldn't be picking any asparagus out of that bed. So to plant the bush beans worked out really well. With your warmer climate, vegetables like your tomatoes and your peppers, you want to try and stay in the 80-day range when you're picking varieties, or less when choosing your seeds, just so that they will develop in enough time before your last before your first frost date, I should say, in the fall comes, which is usually, it could be the middle of September towards the end of September. Usually you're getting your first frosts. So you want to make sure that you're choosing seeds that are around that 80-day mark so that you're able to have them develop in time. Last year I actually picked up 2 rain barrel collectors, and we haven't set them up. I had picked up one the previous year and we haven't set them up. That is something that I would really like to put in. And we were talking about, my husband and I were talking about putting one on our deck to collect the rainwater from the gutters, and then be able to use that to water my plants on my deck, instead of having to carry a watering can in and out throughout the house, because I don't have steps that go up onto my deck. So you're having to pack water throughout the house, and I mean, you have a tendency, it's messy for sure. So it would be nice to have a rain barrel collector on the deck. I would like to have another one set up over in my garden area, and then have another one set up over by the shop. That way we have a variety of water collectors that, depending, wherever you are. We're hoping to put in a greenhouse this year. So that way it would be nice to have a rain barrel over at that area, so that you can always pack a hose around outside in the back easier than you can pull a hose up through and onto my deck. It's not the greatest setup, that's for sure. This year I will be moving my strawberries out of the raised bed in my garden area, because I have made a new area for strawberries, and that's over where I have planted my raspberries as well. Those are some other good zone 3 berry plants that you can have that do well. Raspberries have always done well for us, and strawberries for that matter. You just we have a fenced area around our raspberries because we find that the deer like them too, and they'll strip off all the leaves off of our raspberry canes. And then for the strawberries, it's good to, once you notice that you're getting your strawberries are coming in, you want to, what I do is I put a netting over my strawberries, and that helps to keep the birds from eating your strawberries as well. So that's a good deterrent. Like, it's one thing to plant all these vegetables and all these fruits and berries and everything, but you have your deer and your birds, and you could even have squirrels, that type of a thing. And they just seem to find a way to get in there. And if they do, they are definitely going to wreak havoc on your efforts of growing, and nobody wants that. So what you want to do is, about, I would say 5 weeks before your last frost, you would be these are the vegetables that you could plant 5 weeks before your last frost. That would be your asparagus, beets, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, celery, kale, kohlrabi, leeks, lettuce, onions, parsnips, peas, rutabagas, potatoes, radishes, spinach, Swiss chard, and turnips. All of those vegetables, you can plant those in 5 weeks before the last frost. Now, some of your more tender vegetables, you want to plant on or just prior to the last frost would be your beans, your corn, and your zucchini. Heat-loving vegetables that you want to plant 1 to 2 weeks after your last frost. Last year, I always am commenting about this, and our last frost date is June the 2nd. Last year it was June the 2nd, and I planted on June the 4th, and it literally hailed on my plants the next day, but I did have them protected. So I was thinking, I learned from the year before when I planted all my tomatoes and my peppers, and hail had hit them, and I lost all my pepper plants. Like, they were there, but they were very puny, and they didn't amount to anything at all. With those tender, loving vegetable plants that you're going to plant 1 to 2 weeks after the last frost, those would be the cucumbers, eggplant, melons, peppers, pumpkins, squash, tomatoes. I actually planted I bought some cucumber plants because when I started my cucumber seeds last year, they didn't actually take, and I ended up buying 2 cucumber plants. But the one cucumber plant that I actually planted that made it did produce cucumbers, so I would like to put in cucumber plants as opposed to planting the seeds. Last year, I also did some cucamelon seeds, and I started those indoors, but they weren't very big, and it wasn't so much that they didn't make it because of the weather. My cucamelon seedlings didn't make it because of my cats. It had nothing to do with the weather. It's that my cats were just kept going in there. They were moving around my seeds where I planted my zucchini as well. That bed had the same stuff. I had zucchini in that bed. I had cucamelons in that bed. I had cucumbers in that bed, and my cats just were disrupting everything. So another thing, I think I'm going to be starting my zucchini in seeds as well inside, and I'll start those about 3 weeks before the last frost date, and that way I'll have a couple of plants established. Again, I think I want to do it that way because of my cats. I want to make sure that those plants are established and in the ground so that my cats aren't disrupting. I did put some plastic clutches over top of my plants, and that seemed to protect my plants from the cats. And I've also got some wire frames, and I think I'm going to try and put those around some of my plants this year too, to keep the cats from disrupting my plants. But when you're putting your mulch in around your plants, just kind of have it so it's pulled back a little bit from your plants so that it isn't going to prevent the airflow to encourage a fungal disease. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you have any comments, just put them down below. I'm always looking for great ideas in gardening. I'm definitely not an expert. I learn as I go. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, maybe you want to subscribe. If you like this video, throw in a like. We'll talk again, and bye for now.